Welcome to this micro lecture on substantive interaction. In this micro lecture, we'll look at the following topics: the regulatory definition of substantive interaction, instructional activity requirements for substantive interaction, the regulatory definition of direct instruction, which is one of the instructional activity types identified in RSI regulation language, and teaching strategies that can meet substantive interaction requirements. The regulatory definition of substantive interaction has two components. The first part of the definition reads that substantive interaction entails, quote, engaging students in teaching, learning, and assessment consistent with the content under discussion. In other words, to be considered substantive, an interaction must pertain to the academic content under study in the course. Interactions of a purely administrative nature, for example, discussing assignment deadlines, would not count as substantive. The second part of the regulatory definition states that substantive interaction includes at least two of the following 5 instructional activities: providing direct instruction, assessing or providing feedback on a student's coursework, providing information or responding to questions about the content of a course or competency, facilitating a group discussion regarding course content, or other instructional activities approved by the institutional or programmatic accrediting agency. The caveat for instructional activity 5 is that other instructional activities approved by an accrediting agency must have been approved in writing to be permissible. This means that either an institution must have a missive from the accrediting agency explicitly indicating that the instructional activity is approved, or else the instructional activity must be outlined in writing on a public forum, such as the accrediting agency's website. Next, we'll look at a description of each instructional activity type and some teaching strategies that can fulfill requirements. First, direct instruction. According to the definition from the Department of Education, direct instruction occurs in a live online environment wherein both instructor and student are online simultaneously. There is no provision for an asynchronous means of instruction to be considered direct instruction. Put another way, while there are many types of interactions that can engage students in substantive interaction asynchronously, such strategies are not considered to meet the definition of direct instruction by the Department of Education. That said, 2 teaching strategies that meet substantive interaction requirements are holding online office hours and providing optional supplemental instruction or review sessions. Online office hours can be held via video conferencing software like Zoom or Microsoft Teams on a consistent schedule for drop-ins and by appointment for students who cannot make the scheduled online office hour times. Supplemental instruction or online review sessions can be scheduled in advance. A best practice is to record the sessions and post them for the benefit of students who are unable to attend. You might wonder, can't I record video lectures and post them and have them count as direct instruction? The short answer is no. Video lectures cannot be considered direct instruction under any circumstance. That said, there are ways to incorporate video into instructional activities that meet substantive interaction requirements. To use a video in a way that meets substantive interaction requirements, combine the lecture video with a related opportunity for two-way communication between students and you. This method works because it entails pairing a video with substantive instructional activities outlined in RSI regulations. These instructional activities are those besides direct instruction. They are providing information or responding to questions about the content of a course or competency and facilitating a group discussion regarding course content. Let's look at a couple of different methods for achieving this two-way communication relevant to the video lecture. One way is to pair the video lecture with an assignment that incorporates the opportunity for students to share their understandings of the lecture and pose their questions. The substantive interaction instructional activity employed here is providing information or responding to questions about the content of a course or competency. This may be quite a brief assignment that counts as participation, or for which students receive points for participating in a substantive way. In addition to counting as substantive interaction, this assignment can act as a formative assessment, allowing you to assess students' current understanding of the topic treated in the video via their summary or other write-up. Moreover, by reviewing the questions they submit, you can determine whether a given student or several students have questions that need to be cleared up. You can address these in a reply to an individual student or as a class-level announcement for everybody's benefit. When posting the announcement, consider referring to the fact that the question you are answering is a student question. For instance, this is a question I've received from a few students, so I wanted to address it in an announcement. Another option for two-way communication is to pair the video lecture with an online discussion. The substantive interaction instructional activity employed here is facilitating a group discussion regarding course content. This arrangement is a substantive interaction activity because it allows two-way communication between instructor and student. Here, you would post a video lecture on a topic under study, and a related discussion board thread you would then moderate. Of course, you can use a traditional discussion board that asks students to discuss a topic from the lecture, and that would count, provided that you actively facilitated the discussion. However, you can also consider a reflective discussion wherein students would be asked to summarize their understanding of the lecture and highlight key takeaways. They would then pose their questions about the lecture. You would respond actively to questions and provide additional resources and information, even as their classmates are encouraged to respond to their classmates' summaries and answer questions too. Providing information and answering questions is also an approved instructional activity to meet substantive interaction requirements. This entails answering student questions and providing supplemental resources and information. It's important to note here that, even if the interaction is initiated by the student, it is considered substantive interaction. If a student asks to meet with you for an online appointment to answer questions, and you meet with them online to do so, then that interaction is substantive. This is one example of a student-initiated interaction that would still be considered substantive. Again, interactions that originate from the student can be considered substantive, provided that they are of an academic nature. The majority of substantive interaction, though, should originate from the instructor. Some teaching strategies that can help meet substantive interaction requirements include answering common questions via announcement. For example, if you're answering questions you receive via Canvas inbox, you can collate these and share these answers in a weekly announcement. You can also provide a weekly recap announcement, perhaps with a short video, providing clarifying information or links to online resources. When using announcements, consider checking the box to allow students to reply to your announcements. Doing so provides another avenue for two-way communication and augments substantive interaction in your course. The next instructional activity to consider for substantive interaction is assessing student work and providing substantive feedback. Importantly, feedback must be personalized. Auto-graded assignments without accompanying feedback from the instructor do not count. Cursory feedback like "good job" or "superior effort" also do not meet the requirements. The best way to ensure you are providing feedback that meets requirements is to provide frequent, low-stakes assignments that allow you the opportunity to assess student work and provide substantive, personalized feedback. You can use rubrics to communicate both assignment expectations and provide a foundational level of feedback based on the rubric descriptors. To this, add your personal comments to the student. One way to do this is to highlight one strength and then one opportunity for growth. Here, address not only what the student should do better on similar learning tasks, but highlight the underlying competencies that need addressing. These competencies are transferable academic skills that will make a difference not only in similar tasks, but also in your field of specialty more generally. Provide informational resources in the form of hyperlinks or point to areas in your course readings for the student to review where necessary. Finally, facilitating discussions can be considered substantive interaction provided that the discussion board has an active instructor presence. If students are the only one participating, an audit by an accreditor or by the Department of Education may not find that substantive interaction is occurring in the discussion because substantive interaction only occurs between instructor and student. Balancing the need for students to drive the conversation with the requirement for the instructor to be involved can be challenging. Consider replying to student messages with follow-up questions, or to address a misunderstanding in a student's post. Try synthesizing common themes or addressing common questions you see. You may consider having a question and answer discussion board in addition to the conventional discussion threads you maintain. Whatever your strategy, ensure that you are actively participating and responding to students for your discussions to count toward RSI. In summary, substantive interaction in online education involves engaging students in teaching, learning, and assessment relevant to the course content through two-way communication. By employing instructional strategies that we've examined here, you can effectively meet these requirements and foster meaningful engagement in your online learning context.